Translate this, and I'll give you $1 million, the millionaire said, laughing. The executives erupted in guffaws, but when the little girl opened her mouth, the laughter froze on their faces. The Eagle Heights Tower rose over Lagos, a monument to power, 60 stories of glass and steel reflecting the clouds, built with the sweat of thousands of workers who would never step foot in its corporate offices. On the top floor, where the air felt more exclusive and the rugs cost more than entire houses, a scene that would forever change destinies was unfolding. Adayes Okoro's hands were icy, not from the air conditioning that kept the meeting room at a perfect temperature, but from the terror coursing through every vein in her body. She stood in the middle of a room full of people who looked at her as if she were a smudge on their designer shoes. Her mother, Ngozi, had brought her that day because there was no one to look after her. It was a school holiday, and the options were to bring her to work or leave her alone in their small, cramped apartment. Ngozi had chosen what she believed was safer. How wrong she was. And what is this? Chief Obinna Ndiaye's voice cut through the silence like a rusty knife. The CEO of Ndiaye International Holdings was a man who had built his empire on the backs of others. His agbada cost what Ngozi earned in a year, his watch what she would earn in 5. But the most expensive thing he possessed was his contempt for anyone he considered inferior. And to Chief Obinna Ndiaye, almost everyone was inferior. Chief Ndiaye, I apologize. Ngozi stepped forward, her voice trembling. My daughter had nowhere to stay today. She will be quiet in the staff kitchen. She won't disturb anyone, I promise. The staff kitchen. Chief Ndiaye raised an eyebrow, looking Adayes up and down with a barely disguised sneer of disgust. Your daughter. You brought her to my company as if this were a creche. The executives around the table began to murmur. Barrister Chike Obi, the corporate lawyer and Ndiaye's right-hand man, smiled with that self-satisfied expression only cowards show when someone more powerful humiliates the weak. Sir, Ngozi began. Silence. Ndiaye raised a hand. His eyes did not leave Adayes. Come closer, child. Adayes looked at her mother. She saw the fear in her eyes, the silent plea to obey without causing trouble. Ngozi had worked at that company for years. She cleaned the floors, others dirtied, tidied the offices, others messed up. She endured humiliations others could never imagine, all to give her daughter a better life. With slow steps, Adayes walked to the center of the room. The glass walls displayed the city below, small and insignificant. The conference table gleamed under the lights, so polished Adayes could see her own reflection. A child in a simple school uniform, a blue backpack slung over one shoulder, completely out of place in that temple of corporate power. What is your name? Ndiaye asked, leaning forward in his leather chair. Adayes, sir. Adayes, he repeated, savoring the name as if it was something bitter. Tell me, Adayes, what does your mother do here? The question was a trap. Adayes knew it. Any answer would be used as a weapon. She works, sir, she replied softly. Works. Ndiaye let out a short laugh. You call cleaning the toilets we use, picking up the trash we generate, work. Some executives chuckled, others looked away, uncomfortable, but lacking the courage to intervene. It's honest work, sir, Adayes said, and something in her voice made the laughter stop. Ndiaye narrowed his eyes. He wasn't used to being answered back, even less so by the daughter of his cleaner. Honest work. He stood up, his imposing height casting a shadow over Adayes. Your mother earns in a month what I spend on one dinner, and you come here to lecture me on honesty. Maximiliano. A female voice intervened from the other side of the table. It was Miss Aisha Bello, the renowned Nigerian investor who had come to negotiate a multi-million-dollar deal. Perhaps we should continue with the meeting. The documents can wait. Ndiaye did not take his eyes off Adayes. He had found new entertainment. Tell me, studious child, how smart are you? Do you get good grades in your local public school? Adayes did not respond. She kept her gaze down, as her mother had taught her. Don't cause problems. Don't draw attention. Survive. I asked you a question. Ndiaye's voice hardened. Yes, sir. I get good grades. In what subjects? In all of them, sir. Another round of laughter swept through the room. Barrister Obi leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with malice. In all of them? Even languages? The lawyer asked. Yes, sir. And what languages do you speak, little genius? Ndiaye crossed his arms, his smile widening. Adayes hesitated. She knew anything she said would be mocked, but she also knew lying was worse. Her mother had taught her that too. The truth, even if it hurts, is always better than a lie. English, French, German, Yoruba, and Arabic, sir. The silence that followed was absolute. And then, Chief Obinna Ndiaye did something no one expected. He threw his head back and let out a roar of laughter so thunderous it made the windows vibrate. A laugh that contained all his contempt, all his disbelief, all his disdain for this child who dared to claim something so absurd. 5 languages, he exclaimed through laughter. The cleaner's daughter speaks 5 languages. The executives joined in the laughter. It was easier to laugh with the boss than to remain silent. It was safer to be an accomplice than to be neutral. Ngozi wanted to rush to her daughter, but her feet were nailed to the floor. Tears threatened to fall, but she held them back. She couldn't show weakness. Not here, not now. Chief Ndiaye, Miss Aisha Bello spoke again, this time with a firmer tone. I think this has gone far enough. But Ndiaye wasn't finished. He had an idea that seemed brilliant in its cruelty. He walked to the table and picked up a stack of documents. They were the contracts for the international negotiations set to take place that afternoon. Documents in 5 different languages prepared by professional translators who charged fortunes for their work. Very well, little polyglot. Ndiaye approached Adaize, waving the papers in front of her face. I propose a deal to you. Maximiliano, Aisha began. Silence, he ordered without looking at her. His eyes were fixed on Adaize like a predator watching its prey. I'll give you $1 million if you translate this. The room was in commotion. $1 million to a child. Barrister Obi smiled broadly. He understood perfectly what his boss was doing. It was a perfect humiliation. The girl couldn't translate anything. She would be ridiculed, and her mother would learn the lesson of never bringing problems to the office again. Here are documents in English, French, German, Arabic, and Japanese, Ndiaye continued. If you can read and translate them correctly, I'll give you the money, $1 million right now, in front of everyone. That's unfair. Ngozi finally found her voice. She's just a child who claims to speak 5 languages. Ndiaye didn't even look at her. Isn't that right, Adaize? Or were you lying? Adaize looked up for the first time since she had entered the room. Her eyes met Ndiaye's. In them, there was no fear, no shame. There was something the CEO hadn't seen in a long time. There was fire. I wasn't lying, sir, Adaize said, her voice clear and firm. But you mentioned Japanese. I said I spoke Arabic, not Japanese. Ndiaye's smile faltered for a second. Then I suppose you lose by default. What a pity. But I can try anyway. Adaize extended her hand. Give me the documents. A murmur swept through the room. No one expected that. Everyone expected tears, apologies, complete humiliation. Not a child extending her hand with the same authority as an executive closing a deal. Ndiaye hesitated. For the first time in the conversation, he seemed unsure how to proceed. But his pride was greater than his prudence. As you wish. He handed her the documents with a dismissive smile. You have 5 minutes. Adaize took the papers, her hands no longer trembling. Something had changed in her, or perhaps something that had always been there had finally awakened. She looked at the first document. It was in English. It was an investment contract with complex clauses on equity percentages and financial guarantees. She began to read aloud. At first, no one paid much attention. They expected her to stammer, to get confused, to expose the farce they all believed it to be. But then the words began to flow. Adaize didn't just read. She translated simultaneously into Yoruba, explaining the meaning of each clause with a precision that made Miss Aisha Bello lean forward in her seat. Wait, the investor interrupted. What did you say about the termination clause? Adaize repeated the translation, adding legal context that even the lawyers present hadn't considered. The second document was in French. Adaize took it and, looking directly at Aisha, began to read in perfect Parisian French. Aisha Bello paled. Her pronunciation, she murmured in her native language. It's impeccable. Adaize smiled slightly and continued with the translation into Yoruba. The third document was in German. It was a technical report on international bank transfers. Adaize read it with the same fluency, her accent so perfect that Mr. Kunle Adebayo, the Nigerian banker present as a consultant, took off his glasses to look at her better. Where did you learn German? He asked in his language. My neighbor was German, sir, Adaize replied. Also in German. She taught me since I was very little. She said that words are bridges between worlds. The fourth document was in Arabic. It was a letter of intent from Mr. Jeed Lawal, the businessman who would negotiate via video conference that afternoon. Adaize took the paper and began to read the Arabic characters from right to left, her voice adopting the particular cadence of that ancient language. Mr. Jeed Lawal, who was connected by video conference to observe the preliminary meeting, stood up from his seat in his office, thousands of kilometers away. "Who is this child?" he asked in Arabic. The cleaner's daughter, Adeza, replied in the same language without taking her eyes off the document. "And your letter is very well written, Mr. Lawal, especially the paragraph about the importance of trust in business." The room was in complete silence. Chief Obinan Ndiaye had stopped smiling. His face had transformed into a mask of disbelief that slowly colored with something more dangerous: humiliation. Only one document remained, the one in Japanese, the language Adais had admitted not knowing. Ndiaye saw his opportunity. "The last one," he said, regaining some composure. "Japanese, you said you don't speak it. I suppose that's where your little show ends." Adise looked at the document. The Japanese characters stared back at her like an impossible puzzle. She felt the weight of all eyes on her. She felt her mother's hope. She felt Ndiaye's contempt. She felt the astonishment of the international investors, and then she did something no one expected. She walked over to where Miss Amina Sani, the Nigerian executive with Japanese business ties, was sitting. She bowed respectfully, as she had seen done in educational videos, and spoke. "Miss Sani, I don't speak Japanese, but I have studied your country's culture for years. I know that in Japan, admitting what you don't know is as important as demonstrating what you do know. I humbly ask you to teach me to read this document. Not today, but someday." The silence that followed was different from all the previous ones. Amina Sani slowly stood up. Her eyes shone with something that could have been admiration, or perhaps something deeper. "In Japan," she said in English with a soft accent, "we have a word, gambaru. It means to strive to your utmost, never give up, give your all, even if the outcome is uncertain." She looked at Ndiaye with an expression that made the CEO take a step back. "This child has just demonstrated more gambaru than any executive I have known in 20 years of business." Aisha Bello stood up too. "I completely agree. What I have just witnessed is extraordinary." Kunle Adebayo nodded. "I have never seen anything like it." Jide Lawal spoke from the screen in a deep voice. "Chief Ndiaye, you promised $1 million. The child translated 4 out of 5 documents perfectly. I would say she over-delivered." Ndiaye looked around. The allies he expected to have had turned against him. The humiliation he had planned for a child now fell on his own shoulders. "This is ridiculous." His voice trembled with contained fury. "It was a joke. Obviously, I'm not going to give $1 million to a brat." "A joke?" Aisha Bello repeated slowly. "Humiliating a child in front of international investors seems funny to you, Chief Ndiaye." "This is my company." Ndiaye slammed the table. "I decide what's funny and what's not." Barrister Obi tried to intervene. "Perhaps we should take a break. No one asked for your opinion." Ndiaye yelled at his own lawyer. Adais remained standing in the center of the room, holding the documents against her chest. She looked at her mother, who was silently crying near the door. Tears of pride mixed with fear of what would come next, because they both knew the truth. Ndiaye would not forgive this humiliation. No matter what the investors thought, no matter what was right or fair, vengeance would come. It was only a matter of time. But at that moment, as the afternoon sun streamed through the windows and bathed the room in golden light, Adaize Okoro had achieved something no one believed possible. She had made a giant tremble, and that, though she didn't know it yet, was only the beginning, because somewhere in that glass and steel tower, someone else had been watching, someone who knew secrets that would change everything, and that someone had just found exactly what they had been looking for years. The consequences came faster than Ngozi had feared. That same night, as mother and daughter walked toward their small apartment on the outskirts of Lagos, Ngozi's phone rang. The number was from the company. Her heart stopped before she answered. "Mrs. Okoro." The voice on the other end was cold, professional. "This is Human Resources. You are informed that your services will no longer be required at Ndiaye International Holdings. You may come tomorrow to collect your severance package." The call disconnected before Ngozi could respond. Adaize watched as her mother's face crumbled, as tears began to fall, as her shoulders slumped under an invisible but crushing weight. "Mama," Adaize reached out. "Don't say anything," Ngozi whispered. "Please, not now." They walked the rest of the way in silence, a silence that weighed more than any words. Adaize felt the lump in her throat growing with each step. She had caused this. Her moment of bravery had destroyed her family's only source of income. The apartment greeted them with its usual darkness. Ngozi didn't turn on the lights. She sat in the only dining chair and dropped her head into her hands. 15 years, she murmured. 15 years working there, enduring everything. And in one day, it's all gone. "Mama," I didn't mean to, I know you didn't mean to. Ngozi raised her voice for the first time. Her eyes shone with tears and something else. Something Adaeze had never seen in her, desperation. But now we have nothing, Adaeze. Do you understand? Nothing. The rent is due in 2 weeks. I have no savings. I have no other job waiting for me. What are we going to do? Adaeze had no answer. She stood in the middle of the small living room, feeling each of her mother's words pierce her chest like ice needles. I should have kept quiet, she finally said. I should have let him mock me. And then Ngozi breathed deeply, trying to regain her composure. No, my child. What you did was brave. It was incredible. But in this world, the brave don't always win. Sometimes the powerful simply crush those who dare to defy them. That's not fair. No, it's not. The silence returned, heavier than before. Adaeze approached her mother and hugged her. Ngozi sobbed against her daughter's shoulder, letting out all the fear and frustration she had held in for hours, for years, if she was honest. We will find a solution, Adaeze whispered. I don't know how, but we will. I promise you. Ngozi didn't answer. She just kept crying. The following days were the hardest Adaeze could remember. Ngozi went out every morning before dawn, looking for work anywhere that would accept her: restaurants, shops, cleaning offices. But every door closed with the same answer: no vacancies. What Ngozi didn't know was that Chief Obinna Ndiaye had made calls. He had used his influence to ensure that no company in Lagos would hire the woman who had raised the child who humiliated him. It was his form of revenge, silent, effective, ruthless. Adaeze continued to attend school, but her mind was elsewhere. She gazed out the window during classes, thinking of her mother walking under the scorching sun, knocking on doors that never opened. Adaeze Okoro, are you paying attention? The teacher's voice snapped her out of her thoughts. All eyes in the class were on her. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. Then can you tell me the answer to the question I just asked? Adaeze had no idea what the question was, but her mind worked fast. She looked at the blackboard, saw the numbers of the mathematical equation, and in seconds calculated the answer. 42, ma'am. The teacher blinked in surprise. Correct. But try to be more present in class, Miss Okoro. Adaeze nodded, but her mind had already begun to wander again. She needed to find a way to help her mother. She needed to fix what she had caused. A week after the dismissal, the situation was critical. The refrigerator was almost empty, bills piled up unpaid, and Ngozi had started to cough, a deep, worrying sound that worsened each night. It's just a cold, she would say when Adaeze asked. Don't worry. But Adaeze did worry. She could see her mother weakening, her dark circles growing, how each passing day without work stole a little more hope from her. It was then that Adaeze made a decision. She waited for her mother to fall asleep and turned on their old, noisy generator to power their ancient computer. The internet connection was slow, but it worked. She began searching for online translation jobs, services where people paid for document translations. She had no certificates, no credentials, nothing but her languages and her determination. She created an account with a false name. She couldn't use her own. She was underage, and the rules didn't allow her to work. But rules didn't feed her mother. Rules didn't pay the rent. Her first job was small, translating a restaurant menu from Yoruba to English. It paid just a few kobo, but Adaeze did it with the same dedication she had put into Ndiaye's boardroom. When the client left a positive review, something changed. Other clients began to contact her. Legal documents, business letters, important emails. Each job was more complex than the last, but Adaeze didn't stop. She worked until the early hours of the morning when her mother slept. She woke up early to go to school. She slept barely a few hours, but every kobo she earned went directly into an account she had managed to open with borrowed documents from an adult neighbor who owed her mother favors. Weeks passed. Ngozi noticed changes she couldn't explain. The refrigerator had food, bills appeared paid, but when she asked, Adaeze only said she had found coins in the street or that a neighbor had given them provisions. Adaeze, Ngozi confronted her one night. I need you to tell me the truth. Where is the money coming from? Adaeze hesitated. She hated lying to her mother, but she also knew that if she told her the truth, Ngozi would forbid her from continuing. And then, what would they eat? I'm doing small jobs, she finally said, helping classmates with assignments. Nothing bad, Mama. I promise. Ngozi looked at her for a long moment. Her mother's eyes knew there was more, but they also knew her daughter was trying to help in the only way she knew how. Promise me you're not doing anything dangerous. I promise. It was a half promise, Working to exhaustion was dangerous. Falsifying her age to work was illegal. But Adaize convinced herself it was necessary, that the end justified the means. How wrong she was. The call came a month after the dismissal. Adaize was in class when the principal entered the room with a grave expression. 23. Adaize Okoro, I need you to come with me. Murmurs filled the classroom as Adaize stood up. She walked behind the principal through hallways that suddenly seemed longer, more menacing. In the principal's office, two people waited, a man and a woman, both with professional expressions that revealed nothing. Adaize, these are from the Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development, the principal explained. They have some questions for you. Adaize's heart sank. No. Miss Okoro, the man spoke with a neutral voice. We have received an anonymous report about your family situation. It claims you are working illegally and that your mother has no employment or means to support you. That's not. Adaize began. We also received documentation suggesting you have been using false identities to operate on online work platforms, the woman added. Is that true? Adaize felt the world closing in around her. Someone had reported her, someone who knew exactly what she was doing. It had to be Ndiaye. His revenge hadn't ended with her mother's dismissal. He had waited, he had watched, and now he was striking where it hurt most. We need to speak with your mother, the man continued, and depending on what we find, we may have to consider alternative care arrangements. Alternative care arrangements. Adaize felt the air leave her lungs. You want to take me from my mother? No one wants that, the woman said, but her voice wasn't convincing. We just want to ensure you are in a safe environment. My mother is the safest person in the world. Adaize felt tears threatening to fall, but she held them back with all her willpower. She has sacrificed everything for me, everything. And if I made mistakes, it was to help her, not because she forced me. We understand it's a difficult situation, the man said, but we have procedures to follow. Ngozi arrived at the school 30 minutes later. When she entered the office and saw the officials, her face paled. When she heard the accusations, her eyes filled with tears. When she understood they could take her daughter, something in her broke. Please, she pleaded, her voice cracking. My daughter was only trying to help me. It's my fault. All my fault. Punish me, not her. Mrs. Okoro, we are not here to punish anyone, the woman said. We are here to assess the situation. The situation is that I lost my job unfairly. Ngozi raised her voice for the first time. I was fired because my daughter proved to be smarter than the most powerful man in that company. And since then, that man has made sure to destroy our lives. He is the one who should be investigated, not us. Ma'am, we understand you are upset. You understand nothing. Ngozi sobbed now. You don't understand what it's like to trek through the streets looking for work while your child goes hungry. You don't understand what it's like to see your child stay up until the early hours of the morning trying to save us. You understand nothing. Adaize approached her mother and hugged her. Both were crying now, clinging to each other, as if the world were trying to separate them. And in a way, it was. We will need to visit your home, the man finally said. And we want to interview Adaize separately. It's standard procedure. You are not separating me from my daughter, Ngozi said with a fierce determination that cut through her tears. No one is talking about separation yet. The woman tried to calm the situation. We are just. Yet, Ngozi repeated the word as if it were poison. You hear that, Adaize? Yet, as if it's inevitable. As if they've already decided. Mama, Adaize whispered. Everything will be all right. We'll show them we're a family, that we care for each other. They'll see the truth. Truth? Ngozi murmured bitterly. The truth is that we, the poor, have no truth. We only have the story the rich decide to tell about us. The separate interview was the longest hour of Adaize's life. They asked her questions about her mother, about her home, about her meals, about her dreams, about her fears. Each answer was analyzed, noted, judged. Has your mother ever hurt you? Never. My mother is the gentlest person alive. Do you feel safe at home? I feel safe because I am with her. Why did you start working online? Adaize hesitated before answering. She knew the truth could worsen things, but she also knew that lying had brought her here. Because my mother got sick from looking for work she couldn't find, because we had nothing to eat, because I was the only one who could do something, and languages are the only thing I have. Did you know it was illegal? I knew it was necessary. The official looked at her for a long moment. There was something in her eyes that Adaize couldn't decipher. Compassion, judgment, both. Adaize, do you know who made the anonymous report about your family? I think so. Who? Chief Obinna Ndiaye. The man who fired my mother, the man who promised to give me $1 million if I translated documents, and then mocked me when I did. The official made a note. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. When they were finally allowed to reunite, mother and daughter embraced as if they hadn't seen each other in years. They won't separate us, Adaeze whispered in her mother's ear. I won't allow it, my brave child. Ngozi kissed her forehead, my little warrior. But as they left the school, neither noticed the vehicle parked across the street, nor the man observing them with a satisfied smile. Barrister Chike Obi rolled down the window and dialed a number on his phone. Chief Ndiaye, everything went as planned. The authorities are involved. It's only a matter of time before the child ends up in the care system. Ndiaye's voice sounded pleased on the other end of the line. Excellent. No one humiliates me and gets away with it. Absolutely no one. What about the mother? She's already destroyed. No job, no money, and soon no daughter. That's enough punishment for now. And if someone discovers our involvement, Ndiaye chuckled softly, who will believe a cleaner about the actions of one of the most powerful men in the country? No one. That is the privilege of power, Barrister Obi. We can do whatever we want, and the world simply looks the other way. The call disconnected. Barrister Obi started the engine and drove away, leaving behind a mother and daughter walking arm in arm toward an uncertain future. But what none of them knew was that someone else had been listening to that conversation. Someone who had installed a listening device on Barrister Obi's phone months ago, waiting for exactly this moment. Someone who knew all of Chief Obinna Ndiaye's secrets, and that someone had just decided it was time to act, because in the shadows of the Eagle Heights Tower, a storm was about to break, and when it came, nothing would ever be the same. Elder Emeka Eze had lived 73 years learning a fundamental truth. Real power is not measured in shouts, but in silences. Sitting in his private office, in an unassuming building in the heart of Lagos, he listened for the third time to the recording of the conversation between Barrister Chike Obi and Chief Obinna Ndiaye. Every word confirmed what he had suspected for years. His nephew had become a monster. Because yes, Chief Obinna Ndiaye was his nephew, the son of his younger sister, whom Emeka had raised as his own when she died of an illness doctors could never explain. He had given him education, opportunities, contacts. He had taught him everything about business, and Obinna had used every lesson to build an empire of cruelty. Elder Emeka, the voice of his assistant, a woman named Mrs. Taiwo Akinyi, interrupted his thoughts. The investigations you requested are complete. Taiwo placed a thick folder on the desk. She was a middle-aged woman, discreet, efficient. She had worked for Emeka for decades and knew secrets that could bring down governments. What did you find about the child? Emeka asked without looking up. Adaeze Okoro, outstanding student, perfect grades at all levels, speaks 5 languages with proven fluency. Her mother, Ngozi Okoro, worked 15 years at Ndiaye International Holdings until her unjust dismissal a month ago. And the anonymous report? We traced the origin. It was made from a disposable phone, but communication towers locate the call within the Eagle Heights Tower, specifically on the legal department floor. Barrister Obi, Emeka murmured the name as if it were poison. There's more, Taiwo continued. The mother is ill. It started as a simple cough, but it has worsened. Our contacts at the local government hospital indicate she has visited the free clinic 3 times in the last 2 weeks. Doctors suspect severe bronchitis, possibly progressing to pneumonia. She needs medication she cannot afford. Emeka closed his eyes. The image of Ngozi walking in the rain looking for work, falling ill while her daughter worked until dawn to keep them afloat, brought a pang of guilt. He had created the monster destroying those lives. What about the case with the Ministry of Women Affairs? Hearing scheduled for within a week. If the assessment determines the home is inadequate, Adaeze will be removed from her mother's custody and placed in the system. And the evaluators? That's where it gets interesting. Taiwo pulled out another document. One of the assigned officials, Mr. Segun Dada, has financial connections with subsidiary companies of Ndiaye Holdings. He receives monthly payments, categorized as consultancy, but there's no evidence of any service rendered. A disguised bribe. Emeka nodded slowly. Obinna bought the evaluator. It appears so. The verdict is probably already decided. Emeka stood up from his chair and walked to the window. From there, he could see the Eagle Heights Tower gleaming in the distance, a monument to the ego of a man without conscience. For years, Emeka had watched from the shadows. He had founded Ndiaye International Holdings decades ago but had retired when his health began to fail, leaving everything in his nephew's hands. It had been his biggest mistake. Obinna had transformed the company, made it bigger, richer, more powerful, but he had also turned it into something corrupt. bribes to officials, destruction of competitors, exploitation of workers, and now persecution of a mother and her daughter for the simple offense of having wounded his pride. Taiwo, Emeka spoke without turning around. I need you to do something for me, whatever you command. I want to meet that child, Adaeze Okoro. Adaeze was walking home from school when she noticed someone following her. It wasn't obvious. Whoever it was knew how to keep their distance. But Adaeze had developed sharp instincts in recent weeks. Living under constant threat does that to people. She quickened her pace. The follower also quickened. Her heart began to beat faster. It was someone sent by Ndiaye, another move in his cruel game. She thought of running, but her legs trembled too much. Adaeze Okoro, a female voice called her name. She turned abruptly. A middle-aged woman approached with her hands visible, showing she posed no threat. Who are you? Adaeze took a step back. My name is Taiwo Akinyi. I don't mean you harm. I've come to offer you help. Help? Adaeze laughed bitterly. The last person who offered help ended up reporting us to the authorities. I understand your distrust, but there's someone who wants to meet you. Someone who knows what Chief Obinna Ndiaye has done to you and your mother. Someone who can truly help you. Who? His name is Elder Emeka Eze. He was, the original owner of Ndiaye International Holdings. Adaeze blinked. The original owner. But Ndiaye is his nephew. Emeka founded the company decades ago and handed it over when he retired, but he never imagined what it would become. And why would he want to help us? Taiwo looked at her with an expression that mixed sadness and determination. Because he has spent years observing his nephew's cruelties, unable to do anything. Because he saw what he did to you in that meeting room and felt ashamed to share blood with that man. And because he believes that you, Adaeze, have something he lost a long time ago. What is that? Courage to face the powerful. The meeting took place that same afternoon in a small buka, far from the city center. Adaeze had insisted on a public place, and Emeka had accepted without objection. When she saw him enter, Adaeze was surprised. She expected someone imposing, intimidating. Instead, she found an old man with a slow gait, tired but kind eyes, and a smile that seemed genuine. Thank you for agreeing to see me. Emeka sat in front of her with slow movements. I know you have no reason to trust anyone connected to Ndiaye. I don't, Adaeze confirmed. But I don't have many options either. Direct. I like that. Emeka ordered 2 hot chocolates from the waiter before continuing. Do you know who I am? Your assistant explained it to me. You founded the company. Ndiaye is your nephew. More than that, I raised him. When my sister died, Obinna was barely 8 years old. I took him into my home, educated him, gave him everything I had. I thought I was raising a good man. You were gravely mistaken, Emeka sighed. Power reveals who we truly are, and Obinna revealed something I didn't want to see. Cruelty, limitless ambition, contempt for anyone he considers inferior. Why didn't you do anything before? The question hit Emeka like a slap. It was the same question he asked himself every night. Cowardice, he admitted. Shame, denial. I convinced myself they were rumors, exaggerations, that the child I had raised couldn't be that bad. But when I saw you in that meeting room, when I saw how my nephew enjoyed humiliating a child in front of dozens of people, I knew I could no longer look away. You were there? I have access to all the company's security cameras. I never fully relinquished control. It was my last safeguard, although I never thought I would have to use it. Adaeze processed the information. So you saw everything. I saw how you translated those documents with a skill that professionals would take years to develop. I saw how you stood up to a man who has destroyed careers with a snap of his fingers. I saw how, when the Japanese document came, you had the wisdom to admit what you didn't know, and the humility to ask to be taught. His eyes moistened slightly. I saw an extraordinary child being treated like dirt by a man who doesn't deserve to clean her shoes. The hot chocolate arrived. Adaeze wrapped her hands around the cup, absorbing the warmth. What do you want from me? She finally asked. I want to help you and your mother. How? Emeka pulled an envelope from his jacket. Here is enough money to pay for your mother's medical treatment. I know she's ill. I know she needs medication you can't afford. Adaeze looked at the envelope but didn't touch it, and in return, nothing. No one gives something for nothing. Emeka smiled with genuine admiration. You're right. There's always a motive. Mine is redemption. I have spent years allowing my nephew to destroy lives while I counted my money in silence. Helping you won't erase my sins, but perhaps it can prevent me from committing more. There's something else. Adaeze looked him directly in the eyes. You want something more than to feel better about yourself. Emeka was silent for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. I want to stop Obinna, not just for what he did to you, but for everything he has done for years. The bribes, the manipulations, the lives he has ruined. But I can't do it alone. I need someone I can trust, someone who can't be bought, someone Obinna would never see coming. Me? Adaeze almost laughed. I'm a child. I have no power, no money. I have nothing. You have something more valuable than all that. You have truth, your story, your talent, your courage. The world is already starting to hear about you. The investors who were in that meeting haven't stopped talking about the child who humiliated Ndiaye in his own boardroom. Talking? Aisha Bello, the renowned investor, cancelled all her negotiations with Ndiaye Holdings. Jide Lawal did the same. Kunle Adebayo is reconsidering his participation, and Amina Sani published an article in a prominent business magazine about the importance of recognizing talent, regardless of its origin. Adaeze felt something strange in her chest. Hope, pride, she wasn't sure. And what do you want me to do? For now, nothing. I just want you to accept my help, to let me pay for your mother's treatment, to let me protect you from what's coming. What's coming? Emeka's expression darkened. The hearing with the Ministry of Women Affairs. Obinna bought one of the evaluators. The result is predetermined. They are going to take you from your mother. Adaeze's world stopped. How do you know that? Because I have eyes everywhere, and because I know my nephew. He won't rest until he completely destroys you. Tears threatened to fall, but Adaeze held them back. She would not cry. Not here, not now. Can you stop him? I can try, but I need time, and I need you to trust me. Adaeze looked at the envelope on the table. She thought of her mother coughing every night, getting worse every day. She thought of the hearing approaching like an inevitable storm. She thought of all the doors that had closed, all the hopes that had died, and she thought of something her mother always told her: when you have nothing to lose, any outstretched hand is a bridge. She took the envelope. All right, she said, I will trust you. But if you betray me, if you harm my mother in any way, I will find a way to destroy you. I don't know how, but I will. Emeka looked at her with a mix of astonishment and respect. I know. And that's exactly why I believe in you. That night, when Adaeze arrived home, she found her mother sitting in the dark, crying. Mama! She ran to her. What happened? Ngozi held up a crumpled paper. It was an official letter from the Ministry of Women Affairs. They moved up the hearing. Her voice was barely a whisper. It's the day after tomorrow. They say they have enough evidence to determine our home is inadequate. Adaeze felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. Emeka had said he needed time, but time had run out. Mama, listen to me. She took her mother's hands in hers. I met someone today, someone who wants to help us, someone who has the power to confront Ndiaye. Who? The man who founded his company, his own uncle. Ngozi looked at her with disbelief. Ndiaye's uncle? And you believe him? I don't know if I believe him, but we have to try. It's our only chance. Ngozi's cough interrupted the conversation. It was deep, painful, and this time it was accompanied by something that made Adaeze's heart stop. Blood. On the handkerchief her mother used to cover, her mouth were blood stains. Mama, it's nothing. Ngozi tried to hide the handkerchief. It's just, don't lie to me, Adaeze cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. How long has this been happening? Ngozi didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her eyes said it all. We're going to the hospital now. We can't afford it. Adaeze pulled out the envelope Emeka had given her. She opened it. Inside was more money than they had seen in years. Now we can. In the emergency room of the central hospital, while doctors examined Ngozi, Adaeze made a call. Elder Emeka, it's Adaeze. My mother is very ill, and they moved up the hearing. It's the day after tomorrow. Emeka's voice sounded tense on the other end. They're speeding everything up. Obinna must suspect something. What do we do? There was a long pause. Then, Emeka spoke with renewed determination. Get ready, Adaeze, because we are going to do something my nephew would never expect. What? We are going to tell the truth, the whole truth, in front of the whole world. The waiting room of the central hospital smelled of disinfectant and desperation. Adaeze had spent the entire night sitting on a plastic chair, watching the clock tick second by second, unable to sleep, unable to think of anything but her mother behind those white doors. The doctors had confirmed the worst, severe pneumonia. Ngozi needed immediate hospitalization, expensive medication, and, above all, absolute rest. Weeks of walking in the rain looking for work, sleepless nights worrying about her daughter, and the constant stress of living under threat had destroyed her immune system. She's strong. Doctor Amina Bakare, a woman with compassionate eyes who seemed genuinely concerned, had said, but she needs to stay here for at least a week. If the infection reaches her lungs completely, we could be talking about something much more serious. A week. The hearing was in 2 days. Adayes felt like the universe was conspiring against them. Every time they found a small glimmer of hope, a new darkness appeared to extinguish it. Her phone vibrated. It was a message from Taiwo Akinyi. Elder Emeka needs to see you. It's urgent. Sending address. Adayes looked toward the room where her mother slept, connected to machines that monitored every heartbeat. She didn't want to leave her alone, but she also couldn't do nothing while her world crumbled. She asked a nurse to watch over her mother and left the hospital. The address led her to an old building in a part of Lagos Adayes didn't know. There were no signs, no indications, just a dark wooden door that opened before she could knock. Taiwo was waiting inside. "Follow me," she said without further explanation. They climbed narrow stairs until they reached an office that seemed plucked from another era. Books covered the walls from floor to ceiling. Ancient maps hung in gilded frames, and in the center, sitting behind a solid oak desk, Elder Emeka Eze reviewed documents with a grave expression, but he was not alone. Adayeze stopped dead when she recognized the other people in the room. Aisha Bello, the investor, was sitting in a leather armchair, her legs elegantly crossed. Mr. Jaid Lawal, the businessman, stood by the window, his expression serious but not hostile, and Miss Amina Sani, the executive with Japanese ties, occupied a chair near the desk, her hands resting on a briefcase. "What's happening?" Adayeze asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Sit down, Adayeze." Emeka pointed to an empty chair. "There's a lot to explain, and little time." Adayeze obeyed, though every muscle in her body screamed at her to run. Aisha Bello was the first to speak. Her English had an elegant accent but was perfectly understandable. "After what we witnessed in that meeting room, none of us could forget you. A child confronting a man like Ndiaye, demonstrating skills that professionals would take decades to develop. It was extraordinary. But more than that," Jide Lawal continued, his deep voice resonating in the room. "It was revealing. Ndiaye showed his true nature that day, and that made us investigate his businesses more deeply." "Investigate?" Adiza looked at Emeka, seeking an explanation. "International investors have resources that I don't," Emeka explained. "When I contacted them a few days ago, they had already begun their own investigations into Ndiaye Holdings. What they found is devastating." Amina Sani opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Forged documents, manipulated contracts, bribes to officials in 6 different countries, labor exploitation in subsidiary factories, and something worse. She handed the folder to Adayeze. "Your mother was not the first employee Ndiaye destroyed for personal reasons. There's a pattern. Dozens of people over the years, workers who contradicted him, who refused to participate in his schemes, who simply rubbed him the wrong way. All ended up the same. Dismissed, defamed, blocked from finding employment anywhere." Adayeze skimmed the documents. Names, dates, testimonies, stories of destroyed families, ruined careers, shattered lives. Her mother was just the latest victim of a monster who had operated with impunity for years. "Why didn't anyone do anything before?" she asked, her voice cracking. "Because power protects power," Aisha replied bitterly. "Ndiaye has connections in the government, in the media, in the judicial system. Anyone who tried to expose him was silenced before they could speak. But now, we are many," Jaid added, "and we have something Ndiaye didn't expect." "What? You?" Emeka leaned forward. "Your story has gone viral, Adayeze. The video from the meeting room was leaked to the internet 3 days ago." "What?" Adayeze felt the air leave her lungs. "How?" "I leaked it," Emeka admitted without remorse. "It was a calculated risk. I knew Ndiaye would accelerate his revenge, but I also knew the world needed to see who my nephew truly is." Taiwo turned on a screen on the wall. The video showed exactly what Adiza remembered. Ndiaye laughing at her, the $1 million challenge, her demonstration in 4 languages, the humility with the Japanese. But the most shocking were the numbers below the video, 47 million views. "In 3 days, the whole world is talking about you," Aisha said. "You're trending in 17 countries. Journalists from all over the planet want to interview you, and most importantly, they are investigating Ndiaye." Adayeze couldn't process what she was seeing. Her moment of humiliation had become something completely different. People weren't laughing at her. They admired her, defended her, demanded justice. The comments, Amina pointed to the screen where thousands of messages appeared. "They are asking Ndiaye to keep his promise. The $1 million. People say you deserve it. I don't want his money, Adaize said firmly. I just want him to leave my family alone. And that is exactly what we are going to achieve. Emeka stood up. But we need your help. My help for what? For the press conference we have organized for tomorrow. The following hours were a whirlwind of preparation. Emeka explained the plan. Tomorrow, hours before the hearing with the Ministry of Women Affairs, they would hold an international press conference. The investors would present the evidence of Ndiaye's corporate crimes. Emeka would reveal his identity as the founder of the company and publicly denounce his nephew's actions. And Adaize would tell her story, not just what happened in the meeting room. Emeka clarified, everything. Your mother's unjust dismissal, the campaign to prevent her from getting work, the anonymous report, the bribed evaluator, everything. And you think it will work? Adaize asked skeptically. Ndiaye has power. He has lawyers. He has connections. But he doesn't have something we do. Jide replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Documented truth. And 47 million witnesses who are already on your side. Aisha approached Adaize and took her hands. I know you're scared. Anyone would be. But what you did in that meeting room showed you have more courage than men who have led nations. You are not alone in this. Amina nodded. In Japan, we say Nana Korobi Yaoki. It means to fall 7 times and get up 8. You have already gotten up more times than I can count. One more time will not defeat you. Adaize looked at each of those present. An old man seeking redemption, an investor who had risked millions for principles, a businessman who believed in justice, an executive who valued humility over arrogance, and her, a child who only wanted to protect her mother. All right, she finally said, I'll do it. That night, Adaize returned to the hospital. Her mother was awake, though weak. Where were you? Ngozi asked, her voice hoarse. Adaize sat beside her bed and told her everything. The viral video, the investors, the plan for the press conference, the approaching hearing. When she finished, Ngozi was silently weeping. My brave child, she whispered. When did you stop being my little girl and become a warrior? I never stopped being your little girl, Mama. I just learned to fight for what I love. I'm scared, Ngozi admitted. I'm scared of what might happen to you if you confront that man publicly. I'm scared too. Adaize took her mother's hand. But I'm more scared of doing nothing and losing you, of them separating us, of him winning. And if it doesn't work, then at least the world will know the truth. And that's something no one can take from us. Ngozi closed her eyes. Your grandmother used to say that words have power, that whoever masters words masters the world. My grandmother? You never told me much about her. She died when I was young, but she was a translator, just like you. She spoke 6 languages. She worked for embassies, for companies, for governments. And she always said her greatest gift wasn't languages, but the ability to make different people understand each other. Adaize felt tears forming in her eyes. Why did you never tell me? Because when she died, I lost my connection to that world. I became what the world expected of me, someone invisible who cleans what others dirty. But you, Adaize, you inherited her fire, and tomorrow you are going to do exactly what she always dreamed of. What? You are going to use words to change the world. The morning of the press conference dawned gray and cold. Adaize had barely slept. She had spent hours rehearsing what she would say, how she would say it, anticipating questions they might ask her. But nothing had prepared her for what she found when she arrived at the hall where the event would take place. Hundreds of journalists filled the space. Television cameras from all over the world pointed toward a small stage where a podium with microphones had been placed. Outside, Taiwo informed her, thousands of people had gathered, many with signs that read, Justice for Adaize and Ndiaye must pay. The world is watching. Are you ready? Emeka asked her as they walked toward the stage. No, Adaize admitted, but I'm going to do it anyway. The conference began with Emeka introducing himself. He revealed his identity as the founder of Ndiaye Holdings and publicly denounced his nephew's actions. The journalists exploded with questions, but Emeka remained calm, presenting document after document as evidence. Then came the investors. Aisha spoke about the financial irregularities. Jide revealed the international bribes. Amina presented testimonies from former employees who had suffered the same fate as Ngozi. And finally, it was Adaize's turn. She walked to the podium with trembling legs, but a voice that refused to crack. She looked at the cameras, imagined the millions of eyes watching her from all over the world, and began to speak. My name is Adaize Okoro. I am 11 years old. My mother is a cleaner, and a month ago, a powerful man promised to give me $1 million if I could translate documents in 5 languages. She paused. The silence in the room was absolute. I translated 4 out of 5 perfectly. The 5th was Japanese, a language I don't know, but instead of lying, I admitted my limitation and asked to learn. Do you know what that man did? He laughed. He said it was a joke and then fired my mother for having brought me to work that day. The cameras captured every word, every expression, every tear Adaiz refused to let fall. But that wasn't enough for him. He made sure no company in Lagos would hire my mother. He filed an anonymous report to have me removed from her custody. He bought officials to ensure we lost everything. She held up a folder containing copies of the evidence. Here is the proof. Documents, recordings, testimonies, everything you need to see who Chief Obinna Ndiaye truly is. She looked directly at the main camera. Chief Ndiaye, if you are watching this, I want you to know something. I am not afraid of you. My mother taught me that dignity cannot be bought or sold, and my grandmother, whom I never knew but whose fire runs in my veins, taught me that words can change the world. Her voice strengthened with each sentence. You tried to destroy us, but all you achieved was to awaken something you won't be able to put back to sleep, because now the world knows who you really are, and the world is watching. The silence that followed Adeiz's words lasted barely 3 seconds. Then chaos. Journalists rose from their seats, shouting questions. Camera flashes exploded like fireworks. The murmur of the crowd outside turned into a roar that penetrated the building's walls. But Adaize heard none of that. Her eyes were fixed on a side screen that showed the live broadcast. The viewer numbers climbed every second. 1 million, 2 million, 5 million. People from all over the world were witnessing this moment. Emeka approached the podium and took control. Now we will take questions in an orderly manner. Please raise your hand. Hands shot up like a forest of desperate fingers. You in the front row. Emeka pointed to a journalist with a Global News press pass. Thank you. I'm Bimbo Peters from Global News. Elder Eze, you claim to be the founder of Ndiaye Holdings and Chief Obinna Ndiaye's uncle. Do you have proof of this kinship? Emeka nodded. I have birth certificates, informal adoption documents, bank records showing the transfers I made for his education, and family photographs spanning decades. All will be handed over to the relevant authorities. Another hand went up. A man with a British accent. Jonathan Pierce, Financial Times. For the investors present, are you willing to formally testify against Ndiaye Holdings? And what implications would this have for your own businesses? Aisha Bello approached the microphone. We are willing to testify. As for the implications, we will lose money, a lot of money, but there are things more important than profit. Integrity is one of them. Jeed Lawal added, in my culture, honor is worth more than gold. What we witnessed in that meeting room was the dishonor of a man who believes money protects him from everything. He was wrong. The questions continued for almost an hour, about the documents, about the testimonies, about Ndiaye's pattern of behavior. Each answer was another stone in the wall being built around the CEO's empire. Finally, a young journalist timidly raised her hand. This question is for Adaiz. How did you learn so many languages at such a young age? Adaiz looked at the journalist. It was the first question directed specifically at her since her initial statement. My mother worked all day, she began. When I was little, I spent a lot of time alone. The neighbors in our building came from different countries. Mrs. Ingrid from Germany taught me her language while she looked after me. Mr. Ahmad from Syria told me stories in Arabic while his wife cooked for us. Madame Colette, an elderly French woman who lived on the 3rd floor, read me poetry in her language every afternoon. She paused, remembering faces she hadn't seen in years. To them, I wasn't the cleaner's daughter. I was simply Adaiz, a curious child who asked many questions. They taught me their languages because it was the only thing they had to give, and I learned because it was the only way I knew to thank them for their love. The silence that followed was different from the previous one. It wasn't tension or expectation. It was respect. And English? The journalist asked softly. The internet. Adaiz smiled slightly. Videos, movies, songs. My mother couldn't afford private lessons, but knowledge is there for anyone who wants to seek it. The conference ended past noon. As Adaiz was escorted out of the building, her phone began to vibrate uncontrollably. Messages from unknown numbers, social media notifications, missed calls from international prefixes, but only one message caught her attention. It was from Dr. Amina Bakare at the hospital. Your mother woke up. She's asking for you. Come when you can. Adaize ran. In the hospital room, Ngozi was sitting on the bed, her eyes fixed on a small television broadcasting the news. The press conference was the main topic on every channel. My child, she whispered when Adaiz entered. My little warrior. Adaiz threw herself into her arms, crying for the first time in days. All the contained emotions, all the fear, all the pressure came out in sobs that shook her entire body. "You did it," Ngozi stroked her hair. "You faced a monster, and the whole world saw it. I was so scared, Mama, so scared of failing, of it being all for nothing. But you didn't fail. You have never failed, Adayez. Everything you have done with your heart, and the heart never lies." Dr. Bakare entered at that moment with a smile that lit up her face. "I have good news. The infection is responding to treatment. If all continues like this, your mother could leave the hospital in 4 or 5 days." "Really?" Adaize felt a wave of relief. "Really, although she will need absolute rest for several weeks. No stress, no worries." Ngozi laughed softly. "That will be difficult with a daughter who has just declared war on one of the most powerful men in the country." The doctor looked at them with curiosity. "I saw the press conference. The whole hospital saw it. The nurses are talking about organizing a collection for you. We don't need charity," Ngozi began to say, but Adeza interrupted her. "We need justice, doctor, and today we took the first step to get it." The following hours were a whirlwind of calls and visits. Taiwo arrived first with news that changed everything. The Attorney General announced a formal investigation against Ndiaye Holdings. "They are reviewing all the documents we presented, and there's more." 3 former employees who had remained silent out of fear now want to testify. Then came Emeka, visibly exhausted but with renewed energy. Obinna has disappeared. He's not at home, he's not at the office, he's not in any of his usual places. His lawyers say he's evaluating legal options, but the truth is, he's running. "Running?" Adiez frowned. "Where? He has properties in several countries, bank accounts in tax havens. He could be anywhere. And tomorrow's hearing, the one with the Ministry of Women Affairs?" Emeka smiled for the first time in days. Cancelled. The official Obinna had bought, Mr. Segundada, was arrested this morning. He confessed everything in exchange for a reduced sentence. "The anonymous report against your family has been officially dismissed." Adaize felt her knees give way. Ngozi held her as both cried tears of relief. "It means they won't separate me from my mama?" "It means exactly that. No one will ever separate you." But the calm was short-lived. That night, as Adaize dozed in a chair beside her mother's bed, her phone rang. It was a blocked number. She hesitated before answering. Something in her instinct told her not to, but curiosity was stronger. "Hello, Adaize Okoro." The voice on the other end was distorted, unrecognizable. "You have made a grave mistake." "Who is this?" "Someone who knows things that even Elder Emeka doesn't know about his dear nephew." Adaize felt a shiver run down her spine. "What things?" "Chief Obinna Ndiaye is not who everyone thinks. His cruelty has deeper roots than you imagine. Roots that extend to your own family." "My family? I don't understand." "Your grandmother, the translator. Do you think it was a coincidence that she died so young? Do you think it was a coincidence that your mother ended up working for Ndiaye's company?" Adaize's heart beat so fast she could hear it in her ears. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying there's a story no one has told you. A story that connects your family with the Ndiayes for decades. And if you want to know the whole truth, you need to look in the place where it all began." "What place?" "Elder Emeka Eze's personal archive. Ask him about the year he met your grandmother. Ask him what happened at the diplomatic mission. Ask him why your mother never knew who her father was." The line disconnected. Adaize remained paralyzed, the phone still glued to her ear. The mysterious voice's words echoed in her mind like a dark cavern. Her grandmother, the diplomatic mission, her mother's father. What did it all mean? She looked at Ngozi, who was sleeping deeply thanks to the medication. Her mother had never spoken of her father. Adaize had always assumed it was a painful subject, something she shouldn't ask about. But now the questions multiplied like viruses in her mind. Who was her mother's father? What connection did her grandmother have with the Ndiaye? And why did someone want her to know all this just now? The next morning, Adaize confronted Emeka. She found him in his office reviewing legal documents related to the investigation against his nephew. When she entered, he immediately noticed something had changed in her expression. "Last night, I received a call," she said without preamble. "Someone told me to ask you about my grandmother, about the diplomatic mission, about my mother's father." The color drained from Emeka's face. "Who called you?" "I don't know." The voice was distorted, but it knew things that made me realize there's a story no one has told me. Emeka sank into his chair as if he had suddenly doubled in weight. "I hoped you would never have to know this," he murmured. "I hoped I could help you without the truth coming to light." "What truth?" The old man closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, there were tears in them. Your grandmother, Mama Ifeoma Okoro, was the most extraordinary woman I ever knew. She worked as a translator at the diplomatic mission when I met her. She had the same light in her eyes as you, the same passion for languages, the same inner fire. He paused, as if each word cost him physical effort. We fell in love. It was a forbidden love. Impossible. I was married, had responsibilities, a reputation to maintain, but Ifeoma was like a magnet. I couldn't stay away from her, even though I knew I should. Adieze felt the ground shift beneath her feet. You're saying that you and my grandmother had a relationship? It lasted almost 2 years, and from that relationship, a child was born, a child Ifeoma, raised alone because I was too cowardly to publicly acknowledge her. My mother, Adieze whispered, my mother is your daughter. Emeka nodded, unable to look her in the eyes. Ngozi is my daughter, which means you, Adieze, are my granddaughter. Adieze's world crumbled and rebuilt in an instant. Everything she thought she knew about her family, about her history, about herself, was a lie. My mother knows? No. Ifeoma never told her. She made me promise to keep the secret until my death. But now Ndiaye is your nephew. Adieze connected the dots with growing horror, which means Ndiaye is my mother's cousin, which means the man who tried to destroy us is my family. Yes. Emeka finally looked at her. Obinna knows nothing of this. No one knew, except me and your grandmother. But someone else discovered the truth. Someone who wants to use it. Use it for what? I don't know. But we have to find out before it's too late. Adieze sank into a chair, her mind processing information that changed everything. She was Elder Emeka Eze's granddaughter, Chief Obinna Ndiaye's cousin, heir to a legacy she never knew existed. And someone somewhere knew all these secrets, and was using them as pieces in a game she was only just beginning to understand. What do we do now? She asked, her voice trembling. Now, Emeka stood up with renewed determination. We find out who is behind this and discover what they truly want. But before they could take the first step, Emeka's phone rang. It was Taiwo, and her voice sounded terrified. Elder Emeka, turn on the news now. Emeka turned on the television. The image that appeared made them both hold their breath. Chief Obinna Ndiaye was on screen, standing before a microphone with a chilling smile, and the words he uttered changed everything. I have information that will destroy Elder Emeka Eze and reveal that the little heroine, Adieze Okoro, is part of a family conspiracy to steal my company, and I have the proof to show it. Chief Obinna Ndiaye's words echoed on the screen like a death sentence. Adieze felt the air leave her lungs. Emeka visibly paled, his hands trembling as he watched his nephew on screen. In the next 24 hours, Ndiaye continued with that chilling smile. I will reveal documents that prove Elder Emeka Eze has been planning for decades to regain control of my company, and his secret weapon is a child who happens to be his illegitimate granddaughter. The word hit Adiza like a punch. Illegitimate. As if her existence were a mistake. As if her life were a stain to be erased. This supposed David versus Goliath story, Ndiaye spat the words, is actually a family conspiracy to destroy me. And I have someone who can confirm everything. The camera moved, revealing a person sitting next to Ndiaye, Barrister Chike Obi, the lawyer who had been his right-hand man. The man who had executed every cruel order, every ruthless revenge. Now he was there, with a nervous but determined expression. Barrister Obi, Ndiaye addressed him. Tell the world what you know. Barrister Obi cleared his throat. For years, I worked alongside Elder Emeka before he retired. I witnessed private conversations where he expressed his intention to regain the company when the time was right. He mentioned a secret daughter he would one day use as a legitimate heiress. Adieze looked at Emeka with horror. Is that true? No. Emeka vehemently denied. Barrister Obi is lying. He never worked with me directly. He was hired by Obinna years after my retirement. Then why is he saying those things? Because Obinna has him trapped. Barrister Obi knows too much about my nephew's real crimes. If he doesn't cooperate, he will go to prison along with him. On the screen, Ndiaye continued his performance. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., in the same place where this child put on her media circus, I will present all the evidence. The world will see who the Ezes and Okoros really are. A family of liars and manipulators. The broadcast ended. The silence in Emeka's office was deafening. We have to do something. Adieze broke the silence. We can't let him lie about us. What he says has no legal basis. Emeka tried to remain calm, but his voice trembled. There are no documents to prove a conspiracy, because no conspiracy exists. But the public damage is already done, Taiwo intervened. The people who supported you now have doubts. Social media is exploding with theories. Emeka's phone rang. It was Aisha Bello. Emeka, I just saw the broadcast. We need to talk now. Half an hour later, the investors were gathered again in the office. Their expressions mixed concern and determination. Ndiaye's accusation is ridiculous, Jeed Lawal spoke first. Anyone who saw the original video knows that child was not acting. Her talent is genuine. But Ndiaye has something, Aisha pointed out pragmatically. He wouldn't make such a statement without some kind of evidence, even if it's fabricated. Fabricated? Adaize asked. False documents, Amina Sani explained. In the corporate world, it's more common than you imagine. Papers are created that look legitimate, but are completely invented. And how do we prove they're false? There's the problem, Aisha sighed. Proving something is false is much harder than proving something is true. Adaize's phone vibrated. A message from a blocked number. If you want the truth about Barrister Chike Obi, look him up in the Bar Association's closed case archive. Case number 2847. Not everything is as it seems. Adaize showed the message to the others. It's the same person who called me last night, she said. The one who knows about my grandmother and my family. Someone is helping us from the shadows. Emeka frowned. But who? It doesn't matter who right now. Taiwo was already at her computer. What matters is if the information is real. She typed quickly, accessing databases Adaize didn't know existed. Here it is. Taiwo turned the screen. Case 2847 of the Bar Association. Barrister Chike Obi was investigated years ago for document forgery in a civil case. The investigation was closed due to lack of evidence, but the file mentioned something interesting. What? Everyone asked in unison. The original complainant was threatened and withdrew the charges. Guess who legally represented the accused party? Ndiaye Holdings, Emeka murmured. Exactly. Barrister Obi has been forging documents for Ndiaye for years, and now he's doing the same against us. Night fell over Lagos. While the group worked frantically, Adaize knew she had to return to the hospital with her mother. But she also knew that if they didn't stop Ndiaye now, everything they had achieved would crumble. I need to go see my mama, she finally said. She doesn't know anything about what's happening. Go, Emeka nodded. We will continue working. Tomorrow, we will need all our strength, Elder Emeka. Adaize stopped at the door. My mother doesn't know that you are her father. When are you going to tell her? The old man looked down. When all this is over, I don't want her to have any more worries now. She deserves to know the truth. I know, and I will tell her. I promise you. At the hospital, Ngozi was awake, watching the news on the small television. I saw Ndiaye's conference, she said when Adaize entered. That man has no limits. Mama, there's something I need to tell you. Adaize sat beside her mother and told her everything. About Emeka, about Mama Ifeoma, about the secret that had remained hidden for decades. With each word, Ngozi's face went through different emotions. Surprise, disbelief, pain, confusion. Elder Emeka Eze is my father? Her voice was barely a whisper. Yes, Mama, you are his daughter, and I am his granddaughter. And Ndiaye is your cousin, and mine too. Ngozi closed her eyes. Tears began to fall silently down her cheeks. My mother never told me anything, she murmured. Whenever I asked about my father, she changed the subject. Ngozi opened her eyes and looked at her daughter. I don't know what I feel. All my life I thought I was nobody's child, that my father simply didn't want me. And now I discover he's one of the richest men in the country, who watched us for years without saying anything. He was afraid, Mama, afraid of ruining grandmother's memory, afraid of complicating your life. And that justifies it? Decades of silence while we struggled to survive? Adaize had no answer. She understood her mother's rage. She also understood Emeka's reasons, but understanding didn't mean accepting. I want to see him, Ngozi said. Adaize waited outside the room, giving them privacy. Through the closed door, she could hear voices, first calm, then more intense, then sobs. The conversation lasted almost 2 hours. When Emeka finally came out, his eyes were red from crying so much. He seemed to have aged 10 years in one night. How is she? Adaize asked. Angry, hurt, confused. Emeka leaned against the wall. She has every right to feel that way. I stole her opportunity to know her father. I stole a life that could have been different. Did she forgive you? I don't know, he said. She said she needs time, but she also said something that gave me hope. What? She said that despite everything, she's proud of you. of the woman you've become, and that if I had anything to do with that, even indirectly, then perhaps there's some good amidst so much wrong. Adaeze felt tears forming in her eyes. She entered the room and found her mother looking out the window. "Mama," Ngozi turned. Her face showed the traces of tears. But there was something else, something Adaeze recognized, because she had seen it in the mirror many times. Determination. "We are going to put an end to this," Ngozi said firmly. "That man, Ndiaye, is my cousin, my own blood, and he has dedicated his life to destroying innocent people, including us. Mama, you are sick. You need to rest. I will rest when this is over. Right now, my place is beside you. The doctors won't let you leave. Then we'll leave without them seeing us." Ngozi smiled for the first time in days. "Do you think only you inherited your grandmother's fire?" Dawn found an unlikely group gathered in Emeka's office. Ngozi, pale but determined, sat in an armchair with a blanket over her shoulders. Adaeze beside her, holding her hand. Emeka, facing them with an expression of astonishment at seeing the daughter he never knew fighting the battle alongside him. The investors occupied the rest of the room, each contributing resources and contacts, and in the center of the table, a screen showed the discovery that would change everything. "We found the origin of the mysterious call," Taiwo announced. "You won't believe who it is." The image on the screen showed a face everyone recognized. It was a middle-aged woman with strangely familiar features. "Her name is Chidinma Ndiaye," Taiwo explained. "She's Chief Obinna Ndiaye's younger sister, and apparently she has been collecting evidence against her own brother for years. And Ndiaye has a sister." Adaeze couldn't believe it. "A sister he practically erased from existence," Emeka murmured, recognizing the face. "Chidinma, the last time I saw her she was just a teenager. Obinna sent her away when he took control of the company. He said it was for her own good, but the truth is, she was always my parents' favorite. He couldn't stand it. And now she's helping us?" "Apparently, yes. Taiwo, can you contact her?" "I already have. She's on her way." Chidinma Ndiaye arrived 30 minutes before Ndiaye's press conference. When she entered the office, Adaeze immediately noticed the family resemblance. The same eyes as Emeka, the same upright posture, but where Ndiaye radiated cruelty, Chidinma emanated a deep sadness mixed with resolution. "Uncle Emeka," was the first thing she said. "It's been a long time, too long." Emeka approached and embraced her. "Why did you never contact me?" "Because Obinna threatened me," she said. "He said if I ever tried to get close to the family, he would destroy everything I loved." Chidinma broke away from the embrace. "But I have nothing left to lose. And when I saw what he did to this child, I knew it was time to act." She looked at Adaeze with a mix of admiration and pain. "You are brave, braver than any of us. You faced my brother when everyone else looked away. What do you have for us?" Adaeze was direct. "Ndiaye's conference starts in less than an hour." Chidinma pulled a hard drive from her bag. 23 years of evidence, recordings, documents, testimonies, everything you need to prove that the documents my brother will present today are false, and much more. "How did you get all this?" "Because Obinna never considered me a threat. I was just his weak sister, the one who had been banished and forgotten. It never occurred to him that I was watching, waiting, collecting every mistake he made." Chidinma connected the hard drive to the computer. Folders appeared on the screen. "Here's the proof that Barrister Chike Obi's documents were created just 3 days ago. The digital metadata doesn't lie." And here, she opened another folder, are the original recordings of the meetings where Obinna ordered every act of revenge against his enemies, including the campaign against Ngozi Okoro. Ngozi leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the screen. "You have recordings of him ordering my destruction. I have recordings of everything. My brother never learned to be careful because he never believed anyone would dare to defy him." Chidinma looked at everyone present. "Obinna took away my family, my inheritance, my life. Today, I am finally going to reclaim some of what I lost." "What is that?" Adaeze asked. "My dignity and the justice that so many deserve." The conference hall was packed. Journalists from all over the world occupied every available seat. Television cameras broadcast live to over 100 countries. Outside, thousands of people had gathered, many with signs that read, "Justice for Adaeze and the world is watching." Chief Obinna Ndiaye entered first, flanked by Barrister Chike Obi and an army of lawyers. His arrogant smile radiated the confidence of one who believes he has won before the battle even begins. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began from the podium, "today, I will reveal the truth about the most elaborate conspiracy this city has witnessed." He held up a thick folder. Here I have documents that prove Elder Emeka Eze planned for decades to regain my company using a child as a media weapon. A child who happens to be his illegitimate granddaughter, the product of a secret relationship with an employee. Murmurs filled the room. Barrister Obi, my legal advisor, was a witness to these conspiracies and is willing to testify under oath. Barrister Obi approached the microphone, but before he could speak, the doors of the hall swung open. Adaize entered first. Behind her, Ngozi walked with a firm step despite her weakness. Emeka followed alongside the international investors, and closing the group, a woman who made Ndiaye's face drain of color, Chidinma Ndiaye. Chidinma, Ndiaye's voice trembled for the first time. What are you doing here? I came to tell the truth, brother. The truth you have tried to bury for 23 years. Chidinma walked to the podium with the same authority her brother had occupied moments before. My name is Chidinma Ndiaye. I am Chief Obinna Ndiaye's younger sister, and for over 2 decades, I have documented every crime, every lie, every life my brother has destroyed. She connected the hard drive to the hall's main screen. These documents my brother just showed were created 3 days ago. The digital metadata confirms it. They are false, fabricated by barrister Chike Obi, who has a documented history of forgery. The screen displayed the evidence, creation dates, digital records, irrefutable proof. But that's not all, Chidinma continued. Here are the real recordings, the conversations where Obinna ordered the destruction of Ngozi Okoro simply because her daughter humiliated him by demonstrating a talent he could never buy. Ndiaye's voice filled the hall, clear and unmistakable. I want that woman never to work anywhere in this city, and I want that child to end up in the system, so they learn what it means to defy me. The journalists exploded with questions. Camera flashes illuminated the room like lightning. Ndiaye recoiled, his face transforming from arrogance to panic. That's manipulated, he shouted. It's a conspiracy. The only conspiracy here is yours. Emeka stepped forward. For years, I watched you destroy lives while I remained silent. That silence ends today. He looked at Ngozi, who nodded slightly. Ngozi Okoro is my daughter. Adaeze Okoro is my granddaughter. And yes, for decades I kept that secret out of cowardice. But I never, ever conspired to reclaim a company. All I wanted was to protect my family from a monster I myself helped create. Barrister Chike Obi, seeing the ship sinking, made a desperate decision. I can explain everything. He approached the microphone. Ndiaye forced me to lie. He threatened to destroy me if I didn't cooperate. I have proof of his other crimes. Crimes no one knows about yet. Shut up. Ndiaye lunged at his former ally, but security guards stopped him. At that moment, federal agents entered the hall. Chief Obinna Ndiaye, the lead agent, spoke in a clear voice. You are arrested for corporate fraud, bribery of public officials, document forgery, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. As he was being handcuffed, Ndiaye looked at Adaeze with pure hatred. This isn't over, he hissed. I have resources. I have connections. I'll be back. Adaeze looked at him without fear. No, Chief Ndiaye, you won't be back, because now the world knows who you truly are, and the world doesn't forget. The following months were a period of reconstruction. Ndiaye Holdings was thoroughly investigated. Decades of corruption, bribery, and destruction of lives were uncovered. Obinna was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Barrister Chike Obi, in exchange for his cooperation, received a reduced sentence but lost his law license forever. Ndiaye's confiscated assets were used to compensate all victims of his abuses. Dozens of families that had been destroyed, like Adaeze's, finally received justice. And the $1 million Ndiaye had promised as a cruel joke was ordered by the court as official compensation for Adaeze Okoro. I don't want his money, Adaeze had said when she was informed. Then use it for something good, Emeka suggested. And so she did. The Mama Ifeoma Scholarship Foundation opened its doors 6 months after the trial. Named in honor of her grandmother, the foundation was dedicated to identifying and supporting talented youth without resources, boys and girls with extraordinary abilities but no opportunities, exactly as Adaeze had been. Aisha Bello, Jide Lawal, and Amina Sani became principal sponsors. Chidinma Ndiaye donated her share of the family inheritance to fund educational scholarships, and Emeka, finally reconciled with his daughter Ngozi, dedicated his last years to working alongside his granddaughter. Ngozi fully recovered from her illness. The best doctors, paid with funds they could finally afford, treated her until her health was stronger than ever. She now worked as a coordinator for the foundation, helping other mothers who faced the same struggles she had survived. "Mama," Adaeze asked her one afternoon while reviewing scholarship applications, "did you forgive Elder Emeka?" Ngozi smiled softly. "Forgiveness is not a moment, my child. It's a process. But every day I see him trying to atone for his mistakes. Every day I see him loving you as the grandfather he always should have been. That process moves a little further. And someday you'll call him Papa, perhaps, when I'm ready. When he's ready, when we both have healed enough." On Adaeze's birthday, a letter arrived from prison. It was from Chief Obina Ndiaye. "I don't expect your forgiveness," he wrote in a trembling hand. "I don't deserve it, but I want you to know that every day in this place, I think of the moment you laughed at me without laughing, when you showed that true power is not in money or titles, but in dignity. A dignity I lost a long time ago, if I ever had it. Your grandmother, Mama Ifeoma, was extraordinary. Now I understand why my uncle loved her so much, and I understand why you are who you are. I hope that someday, when you are an adult, you can look back and see that even monsters can learn, even if it's too late." Adaeze read the letter 3 times before putting it away. She did not reply. It was not necessary. Some wounds need time, some answers do not exist, and some people simply must live with the consequences of their decisions. Years later, Adaeze Okoro became the youngest translator to work for the United Nations. Her story was told in documentaries, books, and films, but she always insisted that her story wasn't the important one. "It's my mother's story," she would say in every interview, "who worked her entire life to give me opportunities. It's my grandmother, Mama Ifeoma's story, who bequeathed me the love of languages without even knowing me. It's the story of all the invisible people who have extraordinary talents, but never get the chance to show them." In her office, on her desk, she kept a framed photo. It was from that day, in the Ndiaye Holdings boardroom, a child with a school backpack, surrounded by executives who mocked her. Below the photo, a plaque with words her mother had told her that night in the hospital. Words can change the world. And indeed they had, because one child had shown that talent needs no certificates, that dignity is priceless, and that sometimes the greatest giants can be brought down by the smallest voices. All it takes is the courage to speak, and someone willing to listen.